Hello and welcome back to Planet 40k. In today's video we're going to be discussing the Myphitic Blight Hauler from the Death Guard Codex. Guys, before we get stuck in, if you are new to the channel, then pop the subscribe button below to make sure you're getting all the Death Guard content straight to your subs box. And it's also a huge help to the channel, so thanks if you're doing that now. As for the Blight Hauler, one of the fast attack options, and it sort of has the feel as if it's a Space Marine ATV invader bike. So this model is 7 power, just for the one model, or 140 points. You can take them in units of up to 3 models, which is quite nice, and it's going to save you some fast attack slots in your detachments. Starting off as always with the keywords of note, then go to any play company. They're a demon unit, they've got the Myphitic Blight Hauler keyword, and they're a vehicle along with a demon engine. So plenty to work with when it comes to synergy with the book itself. Stat wise, it's got movement of 10 inches, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 6, toughness 7, wounds 9, attacks 4, leadership 8 and a 3+ save. So no degrading stat line here, which is very nice, and quite a tough model with toughness 7. So they're very tankily, especially when you start to add the abilities to the mix. Also quite speedy considering that this is Death Guard. Speaking of abilities, it's got the Remorseless ability, which each time a combat attrition test is taken for the unit, you ignore any or all modifiers. Not that big of a deal here. Even if 2 out of 3 of the models were destroyed and you roll a 6 on the morale test, you're still going to pass. So it's only when negative modifiers for the morale test are included, which then you'd have the potential of failing, but the odds are really slim there. So basically it's not going to happen, so I wouldn't worry too much. They've then got Disgusting and Resilient, which each time an attack is made against the model, you subtract 1 from the damage characteristic to a minimum of 1. So obviously this is a huge Death Guard ability at present, and has really put a spanner in the works with 2 damage weapons and D3 damage weapons. Next, it's got the Contagions of Nurgle. So this unit's going to have Nurgle's Rot, which pretty much every model in the book is going to have that. It puts a stench out that grows in radius each battle round, and if enemy units are caught up in this stench, then they're going to suffer a -1 to their toughness. So another crazy powerful ability there. They've got Putrid Explosion, which each time a model in the unit is destroyed, roll a d6 before removing it, and on a 4+ it explodes. And each unit within 6 inches will suffer a mortal wounds, and that doesn't include Nurgle units. So a 50% chance of exploding, and it doesn't hurt your own guys. Pretty nice. It's got Demonic, which is simply a 5+ invuln sable, so pretty nice. Then finally, Foul Stench. Each time a melee attack is made against a unit, you subtract 1 from the attacker's hit roll. So it gives the unit even more durability, especially when caught in combat. So a good set of abilities there overall. As for weapons, there's no upgrade choices here, so you get what you're given. Each model is equipped with a Bile Spurt, a Missile Launcher, a Multi-Melter and a Gnashing Maw. So the Bile Spurt is 12-inch range, assault D3, strength 6, -1 AP and the damage is 1. It's got the blast keyword and it's a plague weapon, so you're rerolling 1s to wound. So this can actually be fired at units that are in combat. Now I had to read this a few times to understand this. It's not suggesting that you fire this at units that you're in combat with, because vehicles can already do that, but it means that you can fire at units that are in their own combats, so your Blight Hauler doesn't actually need to be in that said combat but still fire into it. I quite like that because Bile shouldn't really affect Nurgle units, so just like spraying water on them, pretty harmless, but against enemy units not so much. Now it's only 12-inch range and the shots are a bit random with D3, averaging 2 of course. Strength 6 is actually decent though, as you're likely to get units within contagion range, so units with a regular toughness 4 statistic will drop down to toughness 3, so therefore you wound them on 2s and you're rerolling 1s because it's a plague weapon. Then there's a -1 AP, which is a bonus. Next you've got the Missile Launcher. It comes in 2 profiles. Both profiles are 48-inch range. The frag is a heavy D6, strength 4, no AP, 1 damage with a blast keyword, and the crack missile is a heavy 1, strength 8, -2 AP and D6 damage. It's obviously quite a flexible weapon because you can blast hordes off the board with the frag grenade, and then also use the crack grenade to fire at tanks and other high armoured units. So there's only 1 missile launcher here, but you can take a unit of 3 of these, which will start to then add up and do some damage. Speaking of damage, the D6 damage however is quite unpredictable at the best of times, so you may need to burn a CP reroll just to get the best out of it. Next it has the Multi-Melter, so it's starting to feel like a one-man army here. The Multi-Melter is 24-inch range, heavy 2, strength 8, -4 AP and the damage is D6, and if you're firing at half range it's going to be D6 plus 2 damage. So a solid mid-range weapon at strength 8 again, -4 AP is burning through anything without an invuln save, but the D6 again is unreliable unless you're within 12-inch range to get the minimum of 3 damage. If you wanted to make use of your Bile Spurt, then you're going to be within 12-inch anyway, so it synergizes quite nicely with the other weapon. Worth noting that both the Multi-Melter and the crack profile of the Missile Launcher can be fired into combat without the -1 to hit penalty due to the Inerexible Advance rule on page 40. However, the frag missile cannot, as it's got the blast keyword. But there is a way of firing that into combat and we'll go over that in a bit. The last weapon is the melee weapon, which is a Gnashing Maw. Strength user, making it a strength 6. -2 AP and 1 damage. It's a plague weapon, so you're re-rolling 1s to wound. So at first this looks a bit so-so, but remember you can have a unit of 3 of these, all with 4 attacks each, giving you 12 attacks, and each attack is obviously strength 6. The enemy units will be within contagion range, so a -1 to their toughness, and if it's a standard toughness 4 unit, they're now toughness 3, which you know what that means, you're wounded on 2s, rerolling 1s, as it's a plague weapon. So here's the breakdown: 12 attacks that hit on 3s. Now this used to be 4s actually until the new Demon Engine stats came in this edition. So hitting on 3s nets you an average of 8 attacks that land. Against toughness 4 or less, you're going to wound on 2s, rerolling 1s, resulting in 7.8 wounds as you're barely missing. After taking their armor saves, with a -2 AP modifier, Space Marines are losing 2.5 models. Orc Boys and Guardsmen are losing around 7 or 8 casualties. Fighting a toughness 7 vehicle with a 3+ armor save will cause about 3 damage, so not really your prime target for a fight. Considering that these are a shooter unit, I'd say this wasn't a bad damage output, especially against infantry models. So that's the weapons wrapped up. Let's look at the book synergy. First, I wanted to look at some of the plague companies that work well with the unit. Now, we did a video discussing all the plague companies only last week, so if you've yet to check that one out, go watch that one after the video. The first one I want to mention is the Inerexible. There's a relic in there that repairs vehicles by killing enemy models with a bearer, so squishing light targets to keep your blight haulers up and running. The second company worth looking at with this unit is the Poxmongers. Now their stratagem firstly has interaction with the unit called Biolus Blood Rush for 2 CP. In the shooting phase you can fire blast weapons into your own combat, so that's your frag grenade going off, and it also gives them a +1 to hit with the ranged weapons against units within engagement range too, whereas normally it would be a minus. And this unit has got 3 ranged weapons each model, so you can make good use of it in that way. The relic within that company also benefits your blight haulers, as the bearer can grant a Demon Engine model within 6 inches a 4+ in 1 save. Now Demon Engine models already have a 5+ in 1 save, but why not make it a 4+ instead? Now looking at some stratagems within the Codex, you've got Creeping Blight. Use the stratagem in the fight phase when a Death Guard unit from the army is selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in the unit makes an attack with a plague weapon, an unmodified wound roll of a 6 has the AP of -4. So it's not bad, but I feel there's more usable melee units like Plague Marines that can benefit from this, but I thought I'd tell you the option anyway. Next you've got a Sickly Corrosion for 2 CP, another one that can work. Once a unit scores a hit against an enemy model, then any non-plague weapon that attacks that same unit for a particular phase gets to reroll 1s to wound, just like a plague weapon. So now this is good because you can use it with any unit or even with your Bile Spurt, then after hitting with it, you can then use your Missile Launcher and your Multi-Melter to reroll 1s to wound as if they were a plague weapon. The next one to look at is Belching Fumes. In the shooting phase, you select a Blight Hauler unit from the army, and until the end of the phase, each time a model makes an attack with a ranged weapon against that unit, reduce the number of attacks made but with that weapon by 1 to a minimum of 1. If the unit contains 2 or fewer models, the stratagem will cost 1 CP, otherwise it will cost you 2. So the situation needs to arise for this to have any use, but you can really put a sting on units using multi-melters and assault cannons for example, to bring their amount of shots down. Pair this with the Poxmonger's 4+ in 1 save to really protect the unit. You got Demonic Gluttony. Again, it's in the fight phase, used on a Demon Engine model that is selected to fight. And until the end of the phase, each time an enemy model is destroyed by an attack made by that model, that Demon Engine model regains 1 lost wound, to a maximum of 3 per phase. If you know you're fighting against weaklings that are just screening the board like a 10-man unit of Gaunts, then pop this stratagem for some easy repair. Flash Outbreakers next. Use the stratagem in the command phase. You select a Plague Company unit with the Contagions of Nurgle ability from your army. If there are any other Plague Company units in the army that have got another Contagion ability that this unit does not have, then they can effectively have that Contagion ability. Not only that, until the next command phase, units from the army count the battle round number as 1 higher than the current battle round number for the purpose of determining the Contagion range for any of the Contagion abilities they have. So this can be brutal, but all depends on the Plague Company taken and whether you gave your Warlord the Plague Company trait, which will be a Contagion ability. So it's nice when your opponent thinks they're out of Contagion range, so they're not going to get that degraded toughness nerf, but then you spring the stratagem, increase the range and put them in the mud. You can also extend the Contagion range by 6 inches with the Gift of Plagues used by a Psyker, just for added giggles. The final stratagem worth a mention is Putrid Detonation. Use a stratagem in any phase when a Death Guard vehicle model from your army is destroyed. Do not roll to see if it explodes, it automatically explodes. and it's only going to cost you 1 CP. So next I wanted to mention a couple of synergies that aren't actually in this codex. You might find this interesting, as you know that units in the book can be within other detachments due to the linking keywords usually associated with chaos. One of which is the Great Unclean One from the Demons Codex. Now granted that this is an 8th edition codex, so will likely change with the rules, but currently the Great Unclean One has an ability called Reverberating Summons. Now if your Great Unclean One carries a Doomsday Bell, you can attempt to summon a unit of Nurgle demons to the battlefield using the demonic ritual, yada yada yada. That bit's not the important part. The bit that's important to you is, in addition, at the start of each of your turns, you may roll a d6 for each Nurgle demon unit within 7 inches of a friendly Great Unclean One with the Doomsday Bell, and on a 4+, a single slain model can be returned to the unit. So that last part in particular is what's important here to the Blight Haulers, because they're a Nurgle unit and they've got the demon keyword, so effectively you can revive a whole model per turn. Now I'm sure this will get nerfed when they bring out their codex, just like the ATV did with the Apothecaries bringing those back to life, but as it stands at the moment you can still do this. Another interesting synergy outside the book is a simple sorcerer from the Chaos Marine Codex. They cast Prescience, which is a warp charge value of 7, and any Heretic Astartes unit within 18 inches of the Psyker, you can add 1 to all hit rolls made for the unit until the next psychic phase. So giving your unit of 3 Blight Haulers the ability to hit on 2s with everything they have can be pretty nasty. So to conclude the unit and set the rating, very fast, very flexible when it comes to selecting targets to fire at. Now as Death Guard are quite slow in general, these guys can be one of those that get up in your opponent's faces as a second wave to keep the pressure on with that contagion Nurgle's Rot. As by turn 3 or so, your Terminators may be struggling if they're being focus fired on after deep striking in. You need to maintain that -1 to their toughness for as long as possible. They also keep the pressure on from all turns, as they can be firing missiles at 48 inches from turn 1, then close the gap and start to fire the Multi-Melter and the Bile Spurt. They inevitably are going to be getting into combat and munching on some infantry units. Their resiliency is top class, a 3+ save with a 5+ invuln save, which can be turned into a 4+ invuln save. Then they've got disgustingly resilient and a -1 to hit in melee. Then on top of that, 9 wounds at toughness 7, not to mention there's 3 of these things in a single unit. And of course lots of sneaky ways of getting wounds back with Plague Companies and Stratagems. Now on the negative side, they're not cheap. Now Space Marine ATV is 80 points. And it's not far off being double that here, but you do get twice as much in terms of gun power, and they are tougher and carry a lot more wounds. Personally, if you're going to take a unit, just take 3, make the most out of them. 3d3 Bile Spurt shots at strength 6, 6 Multi-Melter shots at strength 8, and 3 crack grenades at strength 8 too. You could separate them into 3 units, which will take up 3 faster sack slots, but then any buffs you give to only 1, so it can't be shared to all 3. That's why you should keep them all together. However, both are valid options. Having 3 separate speedy tank units in complete different locations could be a real distraction. Another negative mention here is to how they compare with another anti-tank option within the Codex, the Plague Burst Crawler. One of the better options within the book, 25 points more, but they've got 3 wounds more and their toughness 8, and the weapon doesn't actually need line of sight. However, I do believe they've got different uses and not just both anti-tank options. The Blight Hauler is more of a multifunctional unit in my eyes. It can get up the board doing damage while also picking up some points with objectives, and also keeping that contagion range active further up the table. Looking at the rating for the unit, I'm going to be giving the Blight Haulers a Planet 40k rating of 4 out of 5. I love the resiliency, I love the speed, and the fact that they add something different to your faction, as not many units have a 10-inch movement with so much firepower and yet so tanky. That's my thoughts. I wanted to go a touch higher, but I have given the Plague Crawler a 4 out of 5 in a past video, and I don't think I could put it past the Crawler. Let me know what you'd rate these guys. Don't forget to drop a like on your exits, and sub if you are new around here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.